Hello. So I thought I'd make a FPL video for this season. I haven't figured everything out yet. This isn't really my first draft. This is a lot of these are placeholders. But I was kind of hoping that I would figure everything out first and then make a video. But I don't think I'm ever going to get there. Like the nature of FPL, you just keep tinkering and tinkering, and there's just finer and finer margins. So I thought I may as well just make a video and just vent out all the thoughts I've had so far. Then I may make another one next week once I'm a bit closer to the deadline. So yeah, this isn't the team. I mainly wanted to talk today about, so when I'm trying to figure out what team to pick, I first start with chip strategy first. I want to kind of figure out the big picture, chip strategy first. I want to talk a little bit about possible double game week 16. I want to talk about things that I haven't really heard anybody else talking about much. Slight possible chance of a double game week 16, which I want to talk about. Not sure about though. Want to talk about DEFCONs. I've had a little dive into that. Formation, whether we should be playing 4 at the back, 5 at the back, 3 at the back. Salah and Haaland, and value, and whether you should have both or neither or one or the other. And then I might have a little look into just some of the players and draft. I'll have a little vent at the end. But the first thing, so before I start building a team, I want to get my chip strategy sorted, because I want to know when I'm going to wildcard. Because if I'm going to wildcard early, then I only need to build a team for the first few game weeks. And if I'm going to wildcard late, I need to build a team for longer. So when I'm going to use my first wildcard, and before I know whether to use my first wildcard, I need to know when I'm going to use my second wildcard. Because if I'm going to use my second wildcard late, if I'm going to use my second wildcard early, then I don't want to use my first wildcard late. But if I'm going to use my second wildcard late, I don't want to use the first wildcard too early. And my just first glimpse at the second half of the season is it looks to me like there's a very clear wildcard game week 32 window there. Obviously, when we get closer to it, there'll be different people going different ways. Maybe some people say that'll be too late. But you've got this massive window here. We had a similar one last season, and it was the big popular one where people wildcard in game week 30. That midweek there was like game week 30, and that was 31. And the question was, do we wildcard in 30 or 31? There's the FA Cup quarterfinals. We'll get the results from them, and then we'll find out who's in the FA Cup semi-final and where the doubles and blanks will be, all around about here. And last season, if you remember, we weren't sure if we'd get it in that midweek, and that was game week 30, and then that one was game week 31. But the FA Cup quarterfinals fell in such a way that we all knew what was going to happen anyway, so we all went in 30. A lot of us did. Anyway, but this next season, there's a European midweek there, so we'll definitely get the announcements. We should do in time before game week 32. So yeah, you could dead end into the EFL Cup final blank there in game week 31. You've got all this time to tinker and think about it. FA Cup quarter final, plenty of time to have the announcement. Game week 32 comes and we'll know the landscape by that point, pretty much where the doubles are going to fall, who's blanking here, free hit, bench boost. Feels very, very likely that will be where our wildcard in 32. But again, when we get there, maybe there'll be more nuance to it. But so basically, if I'm wildcarding quite late, it puts me off wildcarding too early. Because if I go for an early wildcard, that team's got to last me all the way up to game week 32 as the main bulk of the season. So it just slightly puts me off going too early. So I'm thinking in my head, I've got this. I mean, I know some people have talked about wildcard 13. My initial instinct was about 7, because you can get 6 game weeks worth of data. There's a little bit of fixture change here and there. The fixture swings, I don't care about as much. We still got transfers to get some of these fixture swings, but it's more a case. The reason why I like going early is because you get all these new players that you hadn't thought about, and you want to kind of change your structure in your team and stuff like that. It's just the unpredictability of the start of the season that I want to kind of jump on, and price changes. I'm open to an early wildcard in game week 4. The only problem with that is it's not much data. It's a bit risky to go on 3 game weeks worth of data and then have that last you for the whole season. So I'm open to an early wildcard if we hit panic stations. But I think I'll probably aim for around about game week 7. But then if I get there and I don't really need to, I can see the worth of waiting until 13. There is a bit of a fixture swing there as well. But generally, I'm kind of staying open with a mind to aim for 7-ish. I'm just going to focus on the first 6 game weeks, I think. Try and get to 7. And then when we get there, that'll be 6 transfers I'll have by that point. Maybe I won't need to wildcard there either, but that's the kind of thinking I've got at the moment. A quick look at the fixtures as well. The fixture swings, this is like a 6 game week rolling score. I came up with my own FDR. It's very similar to the FPL teams one, but I've just tweaked it a bit. I put I think Man City and Arsenal and Liverpool are all as hard as each other, I would have thought. I wouldn't put Liverpool in there in a harder category as the rest. And I think Brentford is an easy fixture. I'll bump Brentford down a bit because of all their problems at the moment. And a 6 game week rolling transfer window. You can see game week 13, Liverpool and Man City, they do suddenly go into this nice run here. But then, are we assuming that we're not going to have any Liverpool and Man City here and then we're going to jump on 6 of them there? Probably not. I'm probably going to have a few Liverpool and Man City, unless Rodri's available on a pick. It's only really Haaland is the one that I would want anyway, because I don't trust Man City. Pet roulette. There are other fixture swings though. I mean, Bournemouth look like they get good. That just 20 means game week 30 and 13 they go on a good run from that period on. So Bournemouth, they suddenly go into West Ham, Sunderland, Everton. That little run there. It's what we're talking about here. So Liverpool as well. They have a nice run there. Sunderland leads, Wolves leads there. It is nice. It is a nice swing. And some of these other teams, West Ham get a bit hard. I think it was Chelsea. Is it Chelsea get hard? Yeah, around about game week 13. So their fixtures, they've got a nice run up to 13, and then you want to jump off them there, maybe. It's a bit vague, but there's some worth to 13 if you want to wait there. Newcastle as well gets kind of good, maybe 10, but in that region there, maybe Newcastle. And Bournemouth are a team that you kind of want to wait. They're a nice team to avoid at the start of the season, then jump on later maybe because of they've lost all their defenders and stuff. So yeah, I can see the worth of wildcarding in 13 if you can wait. One of the reasons I wasn't sure about wildcarding 13 initially is because we get these we get all these free transfers in 16, and usually after you wildcard, you don't really need to make any transfers. And yet you're going to have to use 14 or 15 or waste them. But then that's not really a massive problem, is it? You just book in 1 or 2 transfers to, I don't know, somebody who's got an easy fixture one game week, hard fixture the next. You just book in a couple of transfers for 13 or something, or 14, 15. Not too big of a deal. And you just have to make sure you use all your transfers before 13. But yeah, with 7, I was kind of half thinking I'll wildcard in 7. And then I should be able to kind of roll a few transfers there. And then when people are wildcarding in 13, I should have enough. I'm going to want to use my transfers there, and I should be able to roll a few after wildcarding in 7. And so I should have I might have 4 or 5 transfers that I've got rolled up, saved up, and I want to use in 13 anyway. So you can kind of cover both bases. So that was what I was thinking. But that's my vague outline for wildcarding and tackling these 2 fixture swings. But I will probably wing it as we go. So that's that. Chip strategy. The other chips, bench boost, triple captain, free hit. Yeah, I want to talk about this possible double game week 16 because that kind of might inform when to use those chips. It's certainly making me want to hang on to free hit and triple captain just in case. So basically, bench boost I may still use early because bench boost, it's good to get it out of the way, I think. But so game week 16, this possible double, I could be totally wrong about this. The fact that nobody else is talking about it probably means I've missed something obvious. I may very well have missed something obvious. But there's a chap on Twitter called Tomer Carinaldi, and I've been chatting with him a little bit, and we kind of realised something, which is that, so in game week 16, let's say it's Crystal Palace that are in the Europa Conference at the moment. Let's just assume they're still in it. On Monday, their appeal may have success, and maybe Nottingham Forest. But at the moment, let's assume it's at Palace. So Palace are in the Europa Conference League, but there's also the EFL quarterfinals this week. And if Palace get to the EFL quarterfinals, then it's going to cause a clash. So all of this is based on whether Crystal Palace get to the quarterfinals of the EFL Cup, which is 25% chance. It's somewhat likely. Top 8 teams in the EFL quarterfinal could very well be Palace, may not be. But if it is, then it's probably going to cause a clash, because that Europa Conference League will have to be played on the Thursday, because it's the final Conference League of the group stage, your final stage of the group stage. So they'll all have to play at the same time on Thursday, I think. Could be wrong about any of this, but that's what I'm thinking. And so this game will be their Europa League game will be Thursday this week. So they'll have to play on a Sunday this week, which means they'll have to play the Europa League Thursday there. So they can't play the EFL quarterfinal. And so the most likely place to put the EFL quarterfinal will probably be game week 17, which means their EFL, their Premier League game in game week 17 will probably become a blank, Crystal Palace Leeds. And so in that scenario, it would be quite easy to just move it to one of these two midweeks, because these two midweeks are not Conference League midweeks. This is only Champions League in Europa, not Conference League. So Crystal Palace Leeds could blank here and just get moved to there in that scenario, right? So no big deal. But then you've also got Crystal Palace's opponent in this EFL quarterfinal. And if they move the EFL quarterfinal to here, let's just say it's Liverpool. This is what we were kind of brainstorming. What if it's Crystal Palace versus Liverpool, hypothetically? Well, that means Liverpool's game against Tottenham will also have to blank now. And I can't see a place where else you can put this EFL quarterfinal. Because you've got European teams here. All these other midweeks are blocked up by European teams. So if Crystal Palace are playing a European team like Liverpool in the EFL quarterfinal, it would have to go in game week 17, which means Liverpool-Tottenham, that will have to be a blank now. Now, one thing you could do is if Tottenham are not in the EFL quarterfinal, then you can just put the Liverpool-Tottenham can just go in that. They can just switch them around. So Liverpool-Tottenham goes in the midweek of game week 16, and their EFL quarterfinal, Crystal Palace versus Liverpool, will go in 17. They just do a switcheroo. That seems fine, because they're not in Europe. There's just the Conference League there that midweek. So Liverpool-Tottenham can play there. All seems fine, right? But if Tottenham are in the EFL Cup as well, quarterfinal, if they're in another quarterfinal, let's say against, I think I said Aston Villa or something like that. Let's just say they're playing Aston Villa in a second EFL quarterfinal. Well, now you can't put Liverpool-Tottenham in this midweek because Tottenham are playing Aston Villa. But then I started thinking, well, what if they move that one as well? And they do another switcheroo, and they put Tottenham, Aston Villa in the weekend of 17. Pardon me. And then so you've got Liverpool and Tottenham can go in the midweek of 16. And then Aston Villa, Tottenham game will get switched over here. And then that means that Aston Villa Man United game also has to move into this 16. They're basically switching it. That Aston Villa Man United game has to get moved to here. And that's assuming Man United are not in the EFL Cup quarterfinal. So in that scenario, you'd have two doubles in 16. Liverpool, Tottenham and Aston Villa, Man United. And then if Man United are in the EFL quarterfinal as well, let's say against Newcastle, this is very far-fetched, but it's not that far-fetched. It's 10% chance, maybe, I think. I don't know. But just hypothetically, if that was the case, maybe they'd do another switch. If it was Man United, Newcastle, then that EFL game would go to the weekend, and the Man United Newcastle game, is it Man United Newcastle? I thought it was. It's Man United Aston Villa. And if Man United play Newcastle in the EFL quarterfinals, then the Newcastle Chelsea game would have to kind of move there as well, and you'd end up with three doubles. So when I say it out loud, it sounds nuts and it sounds super unlikely, and it might be, and maybe there's something I've missed. But when I think about it, I can't see the problem with it because like one of the big problems I've noticed is that if that scenario were to happen, because firstly you've got the 25% chance odds of Crystal Palace getting to the EFL quarterfinals, so that's already unlikely. So fine, that's unlikely. But if they do, the chances that the other 7 teams in the EFL quarterfinals are European teams is quite likely. This is supposedly the 8 best teams in England in this quarterfinals, and so it's quite likely that a good 6 of them maybe will be European teams. So all you need is that Crystal Palace in to get to the quarterfinals, and then this scenario could quite easily occur where you've got European teams in the EFL quarterfinals clashing in this manner. And another thing I've been thinking is that the further out you are from this second half of the season, the more all of these midweeks are unavailable, because as we get closer and closer, like once we get towards these playoffs here, we're going to know whether Liverpool and Arsenal and Man City have made the top 8 of the Champions League or not. And we're going to know whether they're going to have 3 midweeks in these 2 midweeks or whether they're going to be reserved because they can't, they need to go play the playoffs. And it's the same with all of this. Then the further out you are, all of these midweeks are actually reserved. So FA Cup, we're not going to know. They can't schedule a postponed fixture into one of these fixtures weeks because Liverpool they will be in that FA Cup round. And at this point, they can't put anything in the EFL semi-finals because they haven't played these games yet. So they're going to have to assume that they're going to be filled up. And basically, every single midweek is potentially blocked. You don't know if these midweeks are free until here to see if they get knocked out the quarterfinals or not. And you don't know if these are going to be free until here to see if they get knocked out. But when you're back here, all of these are potentially blocked. And the FPL, the Premier League reschedulers have to work on the basis of possibility rather than probability. They can't just schedule something in and hope that they get knocked out. Now, they might, I don't know, but I think they won't and they shouldn't. And last season, they were proactive about it. So, yeah, again, I may have missed something, but I feel like there is a certain pressure there. A certain pressure to get these played sooner rather than later. Here's the round of 16, but then every midweek you've got international break there, and every midweek is European, apart from that one, and that's just the Conference League. So there's a real pressure to put them in there. But by the way, you might be wondering what this gaping green hole is there. There is the possibility of playing games on Christmas Eve. But Christmas Eve, I think there's only been 2 games scheduled for Christmas Eve in Premier League history or something like that. So I think they don't really want to do that. But there is a possibility of that. I'm just having a thought now as well, which is that so Crystal Palace and Leeds, they would have to play like on the Thursday. Crystal Palace have to play on the Thursday there. Then it would be the Sunday for their EFL game there. And then the earliest is... Where is my dates? Sunday, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so 3 days later, Sunday, and Christmas Eve is the Wednesday. So that's how they squeeze it in. But I don't know whether it might be more viable for the other team. So let's say that Liverpool-Tottenham game. Liverpool-Tottenham, so the Liverpool-Palace game would have to be played on the Sunday there. No, because the Liverpool-Tottenham game would have to be played on the Sunday. So they can't fit Liverpool-Tottenham here again unless they play it on the Christmas Eve. So that wouldn't work. If there was a knock-on effect with Aston Villa Man United, so if Tottenham were playing Aston Villa, the Aston Villa Man United game, see, down in that scenario, maybe the Aston Villa Man United game, the Tottenham Aston Villa hypothetical EFL quarterfinal game could be played on a Saturday. And then they could play the game on the Tuesday there. So that's maybe possible. I've just had that thought now as I've been thinking it out. So maybe you might only get 1 double game week in 16 with whoever Crystal Palace is playing against, because of the fact that they're going to have to play on that Sunday and they're not going to want to play on Christmas Eve, so it would have to be brought forward. But if there's a knock-on effect with the other teams, there might be an option for them to just play their EFL games on like the Saturday and then play the other games on a Tuesday, 23rd of Christmas. So that could happen. Yeah. Isn't that weird, the way you have slight insights when I make the video right last minute? I should have thought about that. But then, so anyway, there's still a possibility of one double game week in 16 though. But I think maybe they might be able to squeeze some into that game week as well on the Tuesday. Anyway, I just wanted to throw it out there just to let people think about it, because I haven't heard many people talk about it. And the TV rights thing, my thought about the TV rights is that I'm thinking it shouldn't cause too much of a problem if you're just switching fixtures. Like, if you were going to have a fixture here and a fixture here anyway, and you're just switching them, then now the EFL game will be played on the Sunday and this Premier League game will be played on the Tuesday or the Wednesday or something. And the TV rights shouldn't matter that much. I think ITV have the rights for 2 quarterfinals, I've heard. But I can't remember. I think Sky Sports still have the rights to all of them. I don't know if they get played at the same time or whether it's exclusive rights to ITV for just 2 of the games. I'm not sure. But yeah, anyway, I'm not sure how the TV rights affect things. But yeah, so I just wanted to throw that out there. Possible double game week 16. Yeah, there's a chance. And basically, if you're thinking about your free hits and your triple captains, it's making me want to at least wait just in case there could be a double game week there. If they go into 17, then they wouldn't be. They'd still be a part of 17. Yeah, so maybe we wouldn't get the big switcheroo, the big double game week. Yeah, anyway, so that's that. So triple captain free hit, I'm going to wait, I think. And then bench boost, I am open to a bench boost too. My view about bench boost is I'm kind of thinking I just want to build my team first and then fit bench boost in around the team. At the moment there's players like Steve and Dubravka. If they both go to Burnley, if Dubravka goes to, but he has gone to Burnley, and so if that's an option, that makes for what's his name? Game week 2 could be quite a good bench boost because they're playing Sunderland. So that already, and it's quite early, start of the season. You got game week 1 to at least maybe, you got 1 game week, but at least you can kind of just double check. And if you end up with a disaster and your bench boost suddenly looks awful, then you can just delay it. But if not, it's not too long to wait. Game week 2 bench boost sounds nice. Yeah, so that's what I'm kind of thinking. I suspect most people have had thoughts like this, but you know, I've been having thoughts like, is it worth getting a 4 mil non-playing goalkeeper and actually bench boosting with a 4 mil non-playing goalkeeper? If Dubravka wasn't an option, for instance, would that be crazy or not? Because you're taking that 5 mil and putting it in the rest of your team. If you have a 4 mil keeper on a bench boost, you're either going to transfer them game week 2 after the bench boost. You're going to transfer them. If you had a 4.5 playing keeper, then after the bench boost, you've either got to transfer them down to a 4.0. That's using a transfer. And some people say, you know, the worth of a transfer is like 3 or 4 points or something. So whatever points you get from that 4.5 goalkeeper on the bench boost is almost negated when you transfer them down to a 4.0. You're almost losing half your points already. So that's not really very good. Or you stick with the 4.5s, maybe rotate them, have 2 rotating 4.5 keepers, but then you've got this 500,000 that's not going to be in your team for an extended period of time until your next wildcard or something. So unless you're going to wildcard very early, if you're not going to wildcard till like game week 7, then you're going to have this 500,000 that's on your bench and not being used in your team. And 500,000 I usually put as every 0.1 is worth about at least 2 points over the course of a season. So 500,000 is like 10 points over the course of a season. What's 6 divided by 38? 6 game weeks. I don't know. It's maybe 1.5, 2 points or something. Like a theoretical 2 points you might lose by having 500,000 on your bench rather than in your team. Yeah, I haven't fully got the maths figured out on that one, but it's just this sense of like your bench boost. If you put too much money on your bench for one game week, there's this opportunity cost or something. You're for the rest of the game weeks around that, you're going to have too much money on your bench. You're going to have too much on your bench, and now that's not being used in your team. So unless you wildcard game week 2 straight afterwards or something, or do a really early wildcard, it's basically makes me think what I want to do is just have my normal bench, my optimal bench, 4.0 keeper, 4.0 defender, cheap other defenders potentially, and then I'll just find a week when it looks good, is what I'm thinking. So yeah, I'm either going to bench boost, probably going to bench boost 2 at the moment. That is the one that's looking most likely. Or I may wait until 16. But as I say, I think it's unlikely there'll be a big double 16. They're possible, but we'll see. So that's my thinking with that. That is bench boost. And that is that. So DEFCONs. I want to talk about DEFCONs. 1 second, I've got to just do... Sorry. So, DEFCONs. One of the questions I was trying to figure out with DEFCONs is which teams are you most likely to get DEFCONs from? Online, Tom Hadley's been doing, on Twitter, he's been doing really good work on this. And he posted this image of like... He went back and looked through. This is where centre backs get most of their DEFCONs last season. This is where left backs get them. This is where right backs get them. And it's interesting to see patterns, like especially with the fullbacks, left backs against Liverpool and Arsenal. This is left backs against Salah and Saka, and over here you've got like Mitoma and Aït-Nouri. So this is it. Kind of fullbacks get most of their C bits from tackles. And so they're probably having to tackle like crazy in these games. And that's maybe where they're getting their points from, which is kind of interesting. And then the centre-backs, I don't know why Everton are up there. They're a bit of an anomaly, but you've got all these other teams. And so there's this sense of like, so where are you more likely to get your C-bits from? And as a whole, I think this data here on this little green box here is the total amount of C-bits that the whole team, all the teams got against Liverpool. Every time Liverpool played all of these other 19 teams, this is the other 19 teams, their cumulative C-bits against Liverpool. And that's all the C-bits in order. So basically, as a whole, Liverpool produced the most amount of C-bits in their opponents, then Tottenham, Brighton, Arsenal, Bournemouth, City, basically very attacking teams. I mean, at the bottom here, you've got the promoted teams and Forest and Wolves and Everton and Palace, teams that are less attacking maybe. And if you see this little patch here, this is, there's kind of more blue at the top here, more red down the bottom. So this is possession, XG, corners. So you can see basically teams that have a lot of possession, a lot of XG, a lot of corners, and this is crosses into the box. A lot of crosses into the box is correlating with total C-bits across the whole team, including goalies, forwards, defenders, midfield. This is the whole team. So as a general rule, that's the correlation. Teams with high possession, lots of XG, lots of corners, lots of crosses. It's intuitively what you'd think. The other team is defending like crazy and getting loads of C-bits. But this is specifically centre-backs. So I just looked at centre-backs. I went back through last season, just got loads of centre-back data from... what's his name? FBref. A fairly decent sample size. I believe Tom Hadley looked at he just went back and looked to like just Moyes data rather than Dyche and things like that. Whereas I've just done the whole season. Pretty much. And you can still kind of see a correlation with a bit more blue at the top, bit more red at the bottom. So that correlation of possession and XG in corners and crosses is still relevant, I think. But there's a few more outliers now, and one of them is Palace. And the only thing I could think of is that they have this kind of failed long pass metric. So this is attempted long passes. This is the completion rate. And Crystal Palace are quite high on failed long passes. And I'm guessing that leads to a lot of, with centre-backs, it should be clearances. But it leads to interceptions and recoveries as well. But that's the only thing I can think of. Same with Everton, I think. Bournemouth are there as well. Everton have a lot of failed long passes. I don't know enough about tactics, but maybe they don't have the skill enough to get the ball out, and so they just launch it forward, and then it turns over. And sometimes when it gets turned over, it's a clearance, it's an interception, it's a recovery, something like that. I don't know. Yeah, there may be far more data. Basically, it's quite tricky to figure out when a player is going to get a C-bit and when they're not, when they're going to get the DC points. It's kind of tricky. The data's kind of vague. Yeah, as I say, as a general rule, that's quite good. Possession, XG, corners, crosses, all this kind of stuff is a general rule. But with centre-backs, there's a little bit more nuance to it. Chelsea were a weird outlier last season where they had high possession, high XG, loads of corners, average amount of crosses, not that many failed long passes. Yeah, so you'd think, yes, that counts against it. But still, it's weird that they're right at the bottom. They didn't generate many C-bits in their opponents last season. And that's a bit strange. Even as a whole, they came out in the middle there. But with centre-backs, they didn't generate much C-bits in the centre-backs. I also looked at the season before that as well, and Chelsea came out... oh, no, hang on. Let me just do that. Chelsea came out in middle, kind of average. So I don't know what the reason is for that. Maybe one to kind of just keep a thought out for with Chelsea. Maybe they're not going to create as many C-bits as you'd think. And yeah, but these are the teams basically: Man United, Palace, Fulham, Liverpool, Tottenham, Bournemouth, Brighton, Everton. These are the teams that are generating the most C-bits. Man City and Arsenal are in centre-backs. Man City, Arsenal not quite as high. So that's tricky to figure out. But there's that. And then I also looked at defensive midfielders as well. And as a general rule, again, let's have a look. I think defensive midfielders were even harder. For a while, I thought it actually looked like the defensive midfielders might get more in the easy games. As a general rule overall, this is C Brits with recoveries as well. You generally see more blue up here, more red down here. So possession, XG, corners, crosses is still correlating roughly. If you just look at recoveries only, it's a bit more, well, it's kind of flipped there, hasn't it? When it comes to recoveries, it almost looked like it flipped. You've got some of these high possession teams at the bottom now. So against Man City, you don't get many recoveries because they don't give the ball away that much, probably. Arsenal, Chelsea, Brighton. So that kind of idea. So maybe you would think you get more recoveries in the easier games. But basically, let's have a look at this bit, though. This is the average number of C-Brits per game for just defensive midfielders. I just looked at defensive midfielders last season. Looked at quite a lot of them. And Tottenham are top. Everton, West Ham, Everton again, West Ham, Palace, Newcastle. I mean, Arsenal, Liverpool, City, all kind of towards the bottom. Chelsea here. It's not a great deal of rhyme or reason to it. And I don't think I know the pattern. So if anybody does have any insights on the pattern, let me know. But I'm not sure what games a player is more likely to get, a defensive midfielder is more likely to get returns from. 2 seasons ago as well. 2 seasons ago it was Liverpool. But you've also got, again, Palace, Man United, Bournemouth, Everton, Tottenham. These teams appeared high here. Tottenham, Everton, West Ham, Palace, Man United, Bournemouth. There may be certain teams that do consistently produce more see Brits and more see bits in opponents than others. I may leave this data in the description below. I'll leave the spreadsheet if anybody wants to look at it again. Yeah. So yeah, basically it's quite tricky to figure out where these returns are going to come, and the reason why it's important though is like I had like I'm debating between like Murillo and Milenkovic or Lacroix and Munoz and stuff, and if you actually look at like Murillo and these, you know, having a Nottingham Forest defender for the first 6 feels like a good idea, but then when you look at like Brentford, West Ham, Burnley, and Sunderland, those 4 games where you're most likely to play Murillo, they're games that are all quite, you know, Burnley and Sunderland are promoted teams. Who's the other one? Burnley and Sunderland are promoted teams, and then you got West Ham and Brentford. Brentford are quite low, and West Ham are quite low. So these are games where Murillo may not get defensive contributions from. Crystal Palace was a high one, and Arsenal, considering they're a good team, are actually kind of average. But you know, I'm probably going to bench him against Arsenal anyway if I had Murillo. So Crystal Palace is a good one where you might get a clean sheet and defensive contributions, but these other 4 I think is unlikely. And so that kind of metric that some of us have of like 50-60% chance of getting defensive contributions in every game, it's actually probably less likely in these games, and it's more likely in the games that you may be potentially going to bench him for anyway. So I think you have to kind of take a notch off. I mean, that's what I've done in my model at the moment is all of the defensive contributions. I've done a blanket 75% just right the way down the thing, just because I think it's likely that the games where a player is more likely to get DC points is also the kind of games that I'm more likely to bench him in. And with some of the defenders, I've manually overridden some of them. Lacroix I've bumped down to 0.2 just by looking at his fixtures for the first 6 and just trying to figure it out. Like Nottingham Forest and Sunderland and West Ham, these are all teams that you don't get many DEFCON points from. And then Chelsea were that anomaly last season as well, where nobody got DEFCON points from them. Aston Villa were kind of average, so it's only really Liverpool for Lacroix that you're kind of likely to get DEFCON points from. But then I'm probably going to bench him in that game anyway. So these first 5 for Crystal Palace are all fairly low DEFCON opportunities if you base it on what happened last season. But then that's a big if. You know, this is just one data set. Who knows if it's going to happen again? So yeah, so I've swung back towards players like Munoz now. Milenkovic. I think I still liked Virgil because Bournemouth were one of those teams that were quite high on the DC. Newcastle and Arsenal are probably going to be quite attacking. Burnley maybe not, but then Everton and Crystal Palace as well. So Bournemouth, Everton, Crystal Palace were teams that featured quite highly up here. Everton, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, all in the top half. So maybe Virgil van Dijk might be all right. Yeah, so that's what I've been thinking about DEFCONs. I think that's all my thoughts about that. Yeah, the DMs I'm not sure about. Yeah, it's hard to say. I do like these little 5 mil DMs though. I like the idea of having... Well, let's talk about the next thing, which is formation. Formation, is it better to go 3 at the back, 4 at the back, 5 at the back? What's the best formation to go with? At the moment, so you have to play at least 3 at the back, max 5 at the back, and you have to play at least max seven attackers and at least 5 attackers. If you've got 5 at the back and 1 keeper, it's 5 left. So you 5 attackers to 7, 5 to 7, and 3 to 5 defenders. So we're talking about your 4th and 5th defender versus your 5th and 6th and 7th attacker is the question we're asking. And if you play 5 at the back. If you imagine an experiment where you got some person playing 5 at the back and another team going for 3 at the back, immediately one of the big problems is that you can get defenders for 4 mil, but you can't get midfielders and forwards for 4 mil. The cheapest you can get at 4.5. So the person playing 3 at the back, theoretically, they could have 2 4.0 defenders on their bench. And the person playing 5 at the back, the cheapest they can have on their second and third defense bench is for 2 4.5s. We'll ignore this one because this one, even when you play 3 at the back, you still got to play. You have to have at least one attacker on your bench. So that one's going to be 4.5 for both scenarios. But the team playing 3 at the back can have 2 4.0 defenders, and the team playing 5 at the back will have to have at least 2 4.5 attackers on the bench. So that's a million difference. And this is like, we're talking about a general way of playing for the whole season. So that million, as I said earlier, is like, I would consider that to be about 20, maybe 30 points. Every 0.1s are worth about 2 points across the whole season, theoretically. So that's kind of like 20 to 30 points, I reckon, which is basically, if the person who's playing five at the back has an extra million on their bench through the whole season. The person playing 3 at the back has that extra million in their team. And that usually that extra million in your team equates to an extra 20, 30 points over the course of a whole season. So in that experiment, you're already off to a bad start if you're playing 5 at the back because you've got that extra money on your bench. So that was the first thought I thought, and which made me think that I'm probably going to start with at least one 4 mil defender sticking third on the bench, Steve. But then the idea of having 4 at the back, though, I haven't really figured out. Again, I haven't figured all my thoughts out about this set. I'm still kind of trying to figure it out. But the idea of whether to play 3 or 4 at the back, I still like the idea of some of these 4 mils are actually kind of, if they get defensive contributions as well, could be interesting. So I kind of like the idea of having actually 2 4 mils and putting all the money in the team. But especially in game week 2, if you're going to bench boost game week 2, you could just go for Ronaldo and have a Sunderland defender as well, 2 4.0s. But what was I going to say? I'm kind of thinking, though, that it's like, so I'm probably not going to go 5 at the back, but I may go 4. And there's this kind of rotation between your 4th defender and then 2 attackers. And you could kind of do a rotation between those 3 and sometimes play 4 at the back, sometimes 3 at the back. Yeah, so you can. I can't remember what I was thinking about it, but it's something like there's going to be like this rotation of 3 players. You're going to have 3 at the back all the time, so you have 3 solid, and then you're going to have. I'm probably going to have at least 6 attackers, so I want to get 6 solid attackers, and then it's just these pieces. That's going to be 4.0. That's going to be 4.0, and then you've got these 3 little pieces that you can kind of rotate depending on what you fancy doing. So you could do something like that. Another thought though I've had about formation is I wonder whether I want to base my structure of my team based on where the best player price groups of players are, options. People talk about player price points sometimes, but it's, there are kind of clusters of good players. Like there's some good 4.0 defenders, so I want to have them. But they're like the cheap forwards, 4.5 or anything below about 6, are all a bit crap. And so I'm not sure I want to have a structure that has a 4.5 forward, unless this GUI guy, Mark GUI, however you pronounce his name, unless he's actually decent and starting every game, then maybe I'll go for him. But I don't massively love the idea of having a 4.5 forward because, and if he's not, you got nowhere to go to either. Whereas I like the 5 mil mid slot. There seems to be quite a lot of possible options. I mean, semi-options at the moment of these like 5 mil DM midfielders that might just tick along, get you 4 points every now and then. I like the idea of leaving them on the bench. It's fairly cheap, rotating them in. So thinking something like that. So my price points, I'm just thinking, where are the clusters of good picks? That's where I want to kind of sit my price points at. It was one of the reasons I didn't go for Haaland last season, because he was the only one at 15 mil. And it was like I didn't really. It's just, it's him or nothing. Whereas I think this season, because you got Salah or Haaland, it's not too bad to have one of them in. So that brings me to the Salah Haaland thoughts. So yeah, formation. I'm probably going to play 3 or 4 at the back, something like that. Move these around, yeah, whatever. Then Salah and Haaland. Is it better to have Salah or Haaland, both or neither? I'm not sure. So at the moment, if I had to choose right now, I'm probably going to go for neither, because I just like being able to spread the money around. But I'm not sure. Last season, I didn't go for Haaland because I thought he was too expensive for 15 mil. And I thought, you've got to perform really highly to be worth your money. But I've been rethinking some of that. Firstly, there's this talk of like team value that I've been looking at. And Midnight Mule did a video recently about team value, and it's got me thinking as well about it. It's quite worth a watch. One of the things I used to think about with team value is anybody that's over like about 0.6, so points per game per million was the metric I was using. And anybody who's over about 0.6, I used to think that's good value, and under is not. But then it's not actually totally linear, because defenders often come out like 0.7, 0.8, 0.9 value, because they're really cheap. And this idea of just doing points per game per million, dividing it by million and getting this metric is not necessarily the best gauge, because the more expensive a player is, like a Haaland and a Salah, they're coming out at 0.47 there, 0.52. And so I'm thinking, well, that's crap value. But it's not necessarily for that price, and that I haven't got my head around the numbers fully, but that's not necessarily a sign that they're bad picks. And then also you've got to add on captaincy as well, which is to say, if you pick Salah instead of Palmer, and one team's got Salah in their team and they're captaining him, one team's got Palmer, and Salah's predicted 2 points a game, or 1 point a game better off, or something like that, you've got to double that difference. So, because, that extra 1 point a game that Salah's being captained by, that difference is also doubling, because you're doubling Palmer, whatever, so he's getting 6 points a game, Salah 7. You're doubling that to 12. He's doubling 7 to 14. So the difference is actually 2, not 1. And so you've got to add that little difference on there as well, which also bumps up these numbers. So, I mean, Salah there, so I don't know, he should probably be like a 42 or something, which would make his value, what have I just done? Did I just bodge it up? 0.4, so it bumped his value up a bit. And Haaland's actually he's 5 points better than Palmer. So, I mean, compared to Palmer, I don't know if I'm doing the maths right there, but if you bumped up to 48, then his value gets a little bit better, 0.57 instead of 0.52. So that's one thing to think about. And just the fact that 0.6 isn't necessarily the best measure, so he might be good. There's 2 things I wanted to say about this. I'm rambling in this video, so just skip ahead if you don't care. But there's 2 ways to solve it. One is just with a solver, and I've been getting into solvers, and I've tried it out now. Very primitive, but you can get into solvers. Or I did try this other metric here, which I called VIP, is just whatever, where I've basically done the points per game divided by 5, and that 5 is just an arbitrary number I've just picked out of that I think is kind of close, and then I've plus the value. So points per game, if somebody's predicted 5 points a game, divide that by 5, that's 1 point, and then their value, whatever it is, if it's 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, that gets added, and you get this score. And it's a combination of value and points. Because if you've got another player who's predicted 10 points a game, divide that by 5, he's starting from a place called 2 points. And then you added their value as well, and it's 2 point plus 0.5, 2 point plus 0.6. And so I'm just trying to get some sort of measure of a metric that incorporates value and points. And so when you do it by that, now I don't think 5 is just plucked out of the air. that just seemed right. There's probably a mathematical way to get the exact number that might be right. But, Haaland actually comes out top, funnily enough. Harry Wilson, if he plays, he's interesting, isn't he? But Palmer, Ahmad, if he plays. Michael Keane up there. I don't filter these for minutes. If I filtered these for minutes, it would probably be better. Dwight McNeil keeps appearing high. Rodri's very good. Anyway, so that's one way you could do it, but I haven't thought that all the way through. And as for solvers, I have been finding that generally Haaland and Salah do tend to appear when I do a solve. At the moment, I've got Haaland appearing, but solvers, I feel like I would just take with a pinch of salt. I don't really fully trust. I don't really when a solver just says pick this team, I need to know why. And if the solver just says I don't really fully understand it, I guess it's just this is the optimal way. It's saying that to push all the numbers in to get the maximum amount of points. But I mean this is very primitive what I've set up here. It's Sertab from FPL Optimize. He does these good videos here, which I'll leave a link to below. But yeah, if you did a proper, this isn't taking into consideration every game week and all how many transfers you got. If you did a proper solver, it'd be more detailed. But I just wanted to get a sense. And so yeah, even though I don't think Haaland and Salah's good value, they do keep appearing in solves. Salah would have to be, if I bump his numbers down to about 6.7, he was not appearing in solves, and Haaland as well. Like last season, he was only averaging less than 6 points a game or something. But at the moment, I've got Haaland set to his average of last season. He was about 5.8 points a game. His ceiling, his best season, he was about 7.8 points a game. So I've just bumped him to the average. I think he'll probably go back to his average next season. And I've got Salah at about 7, because last season Salah averaged 9 points a game, but in the first half he was 11 points a game, and in the second half he was 7 points a game. And usually historically for Salah he averages about 7 to 7.2, 7.3 points a game. So that's my estimation. But yeah, so with solvers it's all a bit. If you just tweak the numbers, it's all in relation to the numbers of other players as well. In fact, it's got Dango in here. This is what have I done here? That wasn't like that last time I left it, so something's gone wrong there. That's not the team. So forget that. What's going on there? Oh, sorry, yeah, I know what's going on there. It's linked to this, and I've just been messing around with this, so that, yeah, forget that. Yeah, and then with Salah and Haaland, if I was going to go for one of them, I think I'm more inclined to go for Haaland, just because Salah, there's just a few narratives of like he's got Wirtz and Ekitike there, maybe Isaac, no more Trent near him, got Frimpong, things might be different. He is getting on a bit for age. I don't really think he's that old. I think he'll be fine, but you never know. It's acting against him. It's a possibility that he might start feeling his age, whereas Haaland's still young, still got room. I don't know. Man City had a bad season last season. They're more likely to bounce back, do better. So yeah, I'd probably be more inclined to go for Haaland if I was going to go for one of the two of them. But at the moment, neither. But I am open to getting Haaland in if I fancy some more of these cheap players elsewhere. So we'll see about that. Yeah, that's about it. So yeah, one final thing I wanted to say was just mention is there seems to be a lot of bugs in the game so far. FPL Focal and this chap here who won this is the guy who won FPL Challenge last year. They both had this bug where they lost one of their players and they lost 0.1 mil. I presume it's been rectified by now. I don't know. Obviously the user interface is a bit dodgy. So basically I would just suggest that you get yourself into FIFA mode and start to anticipate bugs and stuff. Like I'm going to try and make sure I do all my transfers a little early, like half an hour, 15 minutes before the deadline. I'm not going to trust their servers or trust things like this because you might get screwed there a little bit, and maybe try and anticipate bugs that might happen, play a bit more safely just in case. But hopefully we won't have too many bugs. And then I guess I could just have a little rant about some of the players, but I haven't gone super deep into the players yet. In goal, I was going to go for Sanchez. I know that everybody's going for Sanchez, and then I realised that I think Chelsea might be in for a new keeper. There was talk of Maignan they were going in for, and then this says that there's all kinds of other alternatives if that one doesn't come off. And I don't know if Maresca even likes Sanchez that much, because for last season there was like three or four game weeks where Jorgensen was just the number one. Maresca just openly said he's their number one now, and Sanchez was like, he was top of the, where is it here? Top of the errors leading to an FPRF errors leading to shots. Sanchez was top, and he's also top of errors leading to goals, I think, as well. So I'm not super confident about Sanchez. I think there's every chance that they might get a new, unless I've missed something. I think it feels to me like there's a chance they might buy another keeper. And so I quite like Sells. Out of all the keepers, Sells is all right. Every team you got their last season's points projected forward. And then there's like these narratives we've got about how we think they're going to be worse or better next season. Like Everton have got a new stadium, and maybe that's going to make them worse, and all this kind of stuff. Nottingham Forest got Europe, and they overperformed last season, so maybe they'll come back. All these narratives. But I don't know how much stock to put in the narratives, really. And there are kind of narratives back and forth. You could build a narrative about Nottingham Forest saying, well, they had a good season last season. They're in Europe now. Maybe they'll build on from that. Maybe they'll get stronger. They've had more experience. What's to say they wouldn't just carry on? Who knows? Brentford are a narrative. They've got so many. The weight of narrative against them is so strong that I think you've got to take them down a notch. And teams like Man United and Tottenham, particularly Man United, I think there's the weight of narrative in favour of them this season is quite a lot, with Mbumo, Cunha, Sesko now, maybe Belieber. They're doing well. There's just a sense of like Man United have always kind of been overestimated. People kind of, I think for the last few years, people kind of think of them too highly, and their data has not been there. But now there's this feeling of like, of all the teams that finished bottom last season, that's not the right one, is it? Of all the teams that finished bottom last season, which ones are the most likely to make a jump up? And I think Man United and Tottenham are probably front runners to do that. So they're teams that I'm kind of thinking, maybe keep an eye on them. I quite like the idea of Bruno. So those kind of things I'm thinking. But generally with narratives, I think I'm just going to stick to what happened last season and just project it forward, and just I certainly like nailed players with good minutes. I don't know why I've got De Kuiper in there. I don't think he will stay there. I don't know much about him. I just heard he's got good XG. Whacked him in there. He's just a placeholder. Tyler Adams, I originally really liked Christie, but Christie's got a bit of an injury, I think, so I'm not sure he's going to be ready. And then I also just looked at Tyler Adams' injury history recently, and he's been like injured loads, so I'm not sure he's necessarily very reliable. But so he'll probably change to somebody else. I don't think he'll stay. Wirtz feels like a safe enough bet. I think he feels pretty good. I don't know whether I'll keep Saka. Palmer, especially if he's lost pens, Palmer's pretty nailed. Bowen, I quite like Bowen. Bowen last season scored 13 goals and he got 8 clean sheet points. They got 7 clean sheets, but I think he must have got subbed off early before one of the clean sheets went. He got 8 clean sheet points. So he would have been 21 points down by his reclassification to a forward now. But he also, I believe, would have got 6 DC points. And although... Yeah, it was 6 DC points and 10 extra bonus points from being reclassified as a forward, I think. Now, maybe somebody else has done the calculation. I didn't actually. I'm just going to find it. One sec. Here it is. So I went through Bowen's data. Isn't there where is it? Must be on one of these. Anyway, I went through all Bowen's data last season, and by my calculation, because the only difference in BPS for a forward and a midfield is that you get like 6 extra BPS for a goal, but everything else is the same. So I just went through each of West Ham's games last season, gave Bowen 6 extra BPS, and worked out if he would have got more bonus or not. And I worked out he would have got 10 more bonus points. 10 more bonus points over the course of the whole season. Yeah, so that's basically 16. So being a forward, maybe he's going to take a bit of a knock, but maybe not that much. And so I just like that he's really nailed. So he might be in there. I like Gyökeres. Gyökeres is a weird one where when he first arrived, I was just convinced he'd be starting first game and he'd be amazing and he'd be smashing the goals in. But then it seems like the majority of people are actually much more hesitant about him getting many minutes. So, yeah, so I haven't got him in at the moment, but I think there's a good chance I will start with Gyökeres. But we'll see. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I may go for Haaland, because at one point Isaac and Gyökeres were kind of like nailed in my teams, but now there's doubt about both of them. So it's like, oh, maybe I'll go for Haaland then. We shall see. Saka only got 1 penalty last season. His non-penalty XGI is actually still pretty good. So for 10 million, I don't think he's that much overpriced. I think he's still decent. But maybe take a notch off him. Yeah, like Bruno, like Palmer. My model likes McNeil. I'll have to have a look at him. And I quite like Tielemans. I don't know. I think I'll leave it there. I might do another video next week going into some more detail once I finalise the draft. But I think that's all my thoughts. So, yeah. Yeah, wildcard in maybe 7, 13, not too early. Possible double game week 16. May not be a big one. Maybe. Who knows? So I'm saving my triple captain and free hits, I think, just in case. Saving for later. We'll probably know around about here. Game week 10-ish. Bench boost 2 is still probably most likely. DEFCONs, who knows? It's mainly the high possession, high XG, high corners, high crosses kind of teams in general, but there's a bit more nuance to that, I think. So it's a bit hard to read. Yeah, formations. I won't go over it all again. I'll leave it there. Okay, that's all my thoughts vented out. So I will leave it there. Thanks for listening. See you later.